Have made progress in areas like trade in goods and services, transport, social security cooperation, EU programmes, participation and so on, which is good, but nevertheless big differences do remain, in particular on the familiar questions of the level playing field, so-called level playing field, and fisheries policy. The EU has listened to us in some areas. We have made clear our concerns about the role of the European Court in any future agreement, and the EU has listened to that. And for our part, similarly, we have listened to the EU's concerns about the structure of the future agreement and avoiding complexity. So there has been movement, but the gaps are still significant, and we have to try and move forward in the next month or two.
That movement, can you just spell out what has changed since the last time you gave an update on the state of the UK-EU negotiations?
Well, I think it's the movement on the European Court where the EU has listened to us, and it is the issue of the structure of the future agreement where we've been trying to avoid complexity that are the main things that have moved. There is a lot in this negotiation that doesn't attract attention, but that is important, and those negotiations on areas like transport, on energy, on social security do continue, and we're making good progress.
What is the fundamental problem that remains, however? Is it that they want to still have elements of EU law governing the UK after Brexit? Is that the biggest problem that remains?
Well, the biggest problem remains is that when we began this intensified negotiating process a month or so ago, the Prime Minister set out the principles to Commission President von der Leyen that were intrinsic to our status in future as an independent state. And the EU has heard some of that, it hasn't heard all of it. And the big underlying difficulty is the fact that it hasn't yet recognised that it needs to adapt its position to those principles if we're going to reach an agreement.
Does it need to change its mandate in order to get there?
I don't know whether it needs to change its formal mandate. I wouldn't comment on the EU's own processes, but it's clear that until the EU has internalised and accepted that we will be an independent state with the right to determine our own laws, control our own fishing grounds, then it will be difficult to reach an agreement.
You say September a deal can be done. Does that mean that you do not, under any circumstances, envision negotiations going on past that and into October?
Well, we will negotiate energetically. We've got a round in August, in fact, and we will certainly talk through September if we can. We will have to see what can be done. Obviously, we must prepare for every outcome, and it is possible that we won't reach agreement, but we're going to work very energetically to try to do so.